Welcome to an hour of music about canoes and canoodling from the Golden Age. This program was presented on the 18th of July 2019 at the 40th Anniversary Assembly of the Wooden Canoe Heritage Association held at Paul Smith's, New York. This is your disc jockey, Tom McLeod. So without further delay, a 1 and a 2 and a 1, 2, 3, 4.
In the moonlight, we cuddle a bit while we sit in the moonlight. Then we canoe-dle-oodle along. We go along for a minute, and what do we do when we rest for a minute? We cuddle again and again for a minute. Then we canoe-dle-oodle along. Under the skies, the little fireflies twinkle like the stars up above. Old Mr. Frog, who's sitting on a log, says, oh, what a night for love. We drift along in the moonlight, and what do we do while we drift in the moonlight? Why, nothing but this, just a kiss in the moonlight. Then we canoe-dle-oodle along.
In the February issue of Wooden Canoe magazine, our WCHA president, Michael Grace, wrote regarding the upcoming 40th Anniversary Assembly, and I quote, "In the evening, we'll enjoy a fascinating seminar and slideshow, followed by entertainment from any number of musically gifted WCHA members." End quote. I assure you he was not writing about me. I am not a musician, but must confess to blowing into a trumpet in the high school band. I just enjoy listening to old music, and, being an old canoeist as well, have over the years collected around 50 pieces of sheet music and recordings related to canoeing. There are far more canoe-related songs. During assembly last July, I played a bit of this old music on the laptop for a few folks hanging around the Camp Chesapeake tent. One of them was board member Deborah Gardner, who felt strongly that old music would fit in well with the 2019 theme of Canoes 100 Years Old. So, for better or worse, here I am. This is not a lecture, it's about the music. Audience participation is welcome. Sitting in a darkened auditorium, listening to scratchy 78 RPM recordings when you can't understand the words did not strike me as being a winner. So what made me think it might work? Last year in Peterborough, we had a talk by Jeff Taylor, author of the book Tom Thompson's Last Bonfire. During the talk, he grabbed a mandolin and led in the singing of By the Light of the Silvery Moon, and got considerable audience participation singing along. How many in that room realized they were singing a 110-year-old song? This caused me to think that an old music show might just be of interest to our WCHA group. So, sing along if you like. For this program, I've selected 7 old tones. How was a song chosen? Each has canoe in the title or lyrics, and often a canoe in the art on the cover of the sheet music. Each is from nearly 100 years ago, give or take, and most importantly, I have to like it. There will be a variety of images projected while the music plays. Some are archival, some current photos, some postcards, some sheet music covers of songs which were not selected for this show. If the song has a fast tempo, you'll have trouble reading everything in the frame, so just focus on that part which interests you. The lyrics are highlighted in a red box. Or close your eyes and just listen to the music, or focus on the images. In places, an archival image is paired with a contemporary photo because of their similarity. You might want to watch for those. And there is often an underlying theme in the way images are organized, which you might enjoy trying to figure out. It is my hope that you will find this show to be, firstly, entertaining, and secondly, slightly educational. So, when was the golden age of canoeing? It began in the 1880s, before automobiles, when a young man may have courted his lady by fancying up his horse-drawn buggy or his canoe. There is a style of canoe named the courting canoe, with mahogany gunnels and long mahogany decks, lots of brass, pillows, carpeted floor, maybe even a Victrola, everything to impress and make the young lady comfortable. But then the first Model T rolled off the assembly line in 1908, and as Henry Ford improved the production process, the price dropped until it reached a low of $325 in 1922. Almost everyone could afford to buy a car at this price. So courting in a canoe went out of fashion, while going for a ride became the new norm. Did the golden age of canoeing end in 1919, exactly 100 years ago, when the Morris factory burned to the ground? It seems this date is as good as any to mark the end of the golden age. But as you will see in this show, there was still plenty of canoeing activity and music well into the 1920s. By the golden age, the birch bark canoe was mostly a thing of the past, as indicated by this note from a garish catalog. There were builders of all wood and wood canvas canoes in Canada and the US, yet there remained a kind of a romantic nostalgia for birch bark canoes, which was reflected by the popular music of the day. Here are just 6 of many examples. The image of the noble red man and the Indian-built birch bark canoe was used by many manufacturers of canoes. See here the Carlton Indian Princess, the Dunphy Indian Girl. Notice the young white couple in the foreground with the girl holding the Haskell Redskin laminated paddle, riding in a canoe made of birch veneer, and the young Indian couple in the background in this Haskell advertisement from the 1920s. and of course Rushton and text from the Old Town catalogs, which ran at least for 15 years. Other manufacturers used an Indian image in their advertising to create a connection to an earlier time. Some of these brands have survived for 100 years, and you can still see them in the grocery store. I'll leave it up to the sociologists and the admin to explain why the connection to the Indian is good for business. Which leads to the second song, and staying with this birch bark canoe theme, the song is titled A Little Birch Canoe and You. All recording before 1925 was done acoustically, and the term often used for this was at the horn. My impression on seeing this photo was they had better be really good friends, and I have to wonder how many OSHA violations are in this shot. This Olive Klein platter is not the record that you will be hearing. It's shown to illustrate that in the early days it was common for a single recording to be released, both as a cylinder and a disc. We will hear Edison 6414 recorded in 1918, which would have been done at the horn. It is representative of a style of song that, to our ear today, seems overly sentimental, overwrought, saccharine, maybe maudlin. The vocalist is Manuel Romain, a Spanish-American tenor. So, as you listen, imagine him standing up close while singing into the horn. For all you birch bark canoe owners, builders, and enthusiasts, here is A Little Birch Canoe and You from 1918.
Gone to rest. The hour I love the best is here. When fancy takes its wing, when bells of evening ring, and memory seems to bring you near, and here beside the stream, within the sunset gleam, my one and only dream comes true. The world is fair and fine, and all I want is mine, a little birch canoe and you. Dreaming, dear, at the close of day, I'm dreaming, dreaming here, when once I stood with you. Dreaming, dear, and the world with joy is beaming, while I'm dreaming here by my birch canoe. Dreaming, dear, and the world with joy is teeming, while I'm dreaming here by my birch canoe.
The first recordings for home use came out around 1895, played for only 2 minutes, and those soft wax cylinders wore out quickly. As the technology improved, it became a big deal when the length of a record could be extended to 4 minutes, as is shown inside the red oval. This is still not much time. Many of these songs have several stanzas, plus a chorus, plus, as you will hear in this next recording, something called patter, which is far too much for a 4-minute record. So what got recorded is only a portion of what got printed on the sheet music. With the invention of the microphone and electrical recording, which came into use in 1925, everything changed. Cylinder records faded away, with the disc becoming the standard for the next 50 years. As you might imagine, I spent a lot of hours listening to this music, but the following thought did not occur to me until recently. This was not the music of our parents. Rather, this was the music our grandparents were listening to when they were young. Both of my granddads were born in 1888, before recording, before radio. They were 17 years old and single in 1905 when this next tune was new music. Maybe our young grandparents went into town on Friday or Saturday night to where the community had a bandstand, or if they lived in a city, perhaps to a vaudeville show, a silent movie where a piano played in the background, or to a dance hall where there was a live band. And there they heard Sousa marches, waltzes like Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer due, I'm half crazy, all for the love of you, and novelty tunes from the end of the ragtime era like Hello My Baby, Hello My Honey, Hello My Ragtime Gal, which is really all about the telephone. These were the ways our grandparents heard music, and it was all live music. And you can't forget that World War I had only ended on 11 November 1918. So exactly 100 years ago, in 1919, over 1 million Allied troops were still over there in France. Perhaps some of those were your granddads. They had to be on the minds of all our granddads and great-grandparents. So as you listen to this 100-year-old music, try to put yourselves into the shoes of your young grandparents. The next recording is the oldest in the show, from 1905, and the only one from a cylinder. I debated whether to include it because in today's climate of political correctness it might be frowned upon. This tune would have been performed in a minstrel show. If you are easily offended, close your ears. In this recording, the young lady is standing up for herself, telling her philandering boyfriend where to go. I don't see anything wrong with that. The performance is by Arthur Collins and Byron Harlan, who often performed as a duo. Both had long careers in entertaining and made many records. So here it is, the only cylinder recording in this show, Edison Gold Molded number 9184 from 1905. Paddle Your Own Canoe.
Paddle Your Own Canoe, sung by Collins and Harlan, Edison record. Miss Cindy of Kalamazoo was disappointed, feeling blue. Her sweetheart grew colder day by day. So when it came to school one night, she said, I'll give this coon a fright. I'll make him wait, he never stayed away. He begged for just one kiss, but all he got was this.
Look here, boy. You done been testicating long enough. Now we separate our relations right here. You done heard me. Now.
Paddle your own canoe, that's what you have to do. I've got another sweetheart, I'll be his own crew, and when you're feeling blue, think how I fondle you. Now you see that run off and paddle your own canoe. just took on so his head just is a normal blow. To see you trample on my loving arm. Miss Linda Lou, I will be through this very night. I'll marry you. And Lindy says, don't worry, we won't part. Well, I was fooling too when I just said to you, why, Lou, I was marvelous person that anaphylity existed, but you done had me rattled when you said, paddle your own canoe. That's what you have to do. I've got another sweetheart. I'll be his own true Lou, 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 Lou. And when you're feeling blue, think how I fondle you. Now you together run off and paddle, paddle your own canoe.
So, where does the Dreamy Wabash flow? Do we have any Hoosiers in the audience? How many of you have lived in Indiana? I see a few hands waving out there. How many of you have paddled on the Wabash? When I lived there, I did. After work on a hot summer evening, a group of us would grab a couple buckets of Kentucky Fried Chicken, launch our canoes onto the Wabash near Lafayette, and float downriver past the Eli Lilly Agrochemicals factory, where a pipe from river bottom gushed forth a large pea-soup green plume of wastewater, then floated on to takeout along River Road. Where the Dreamy Wabash flows was popular in its day. This is just one of several recordings of the song. The Wabash River was a link in the 1,700-mile Voyageurs Highway that ran from Montreal to New Orleans in the 18th century. When I lived in Lafayette, I attended a festival named the Feast of the Hunter's Moon, which is held each fall at Fort Ouiatenon, a French trading post just downriver from Lafayette. This event has become the largest gathering of Voyageur canoes in the U.S. Although I'll bet you all have heard of Civil War reenactment brigades, I suspect most of you have never heard of Voyageur reenactment brigades. So with this next song, you will be introduced to both the event and to the Voyageur brigades. The Voyageurs take it seriously. Many make their own clothes, build wooden canteens, sleep on straw underneath canvas or under an overturned canoe, and they cook over an open fire, just as the real Voyageurs would have 300 years ago. A highlight of the gathering was a race among these Voyageur brigades, which was run as follows. You're going to have to listen closely to this. At the discharge of a flintlock, all the brigades simultaneously launched their canoes from the riverbank, creating mass chaos and much paddle splashing. They paddled upriver for several hundred yards and around a buoy, then returned to the bank from where they had departed. Several of these young Voyageurs jump out of the canoe, charge into the crowd, and kidnap a maiden, carrying her back to their canoe. With her in the canoe, they depart upriver again, and around the buoy a second time, then return to the bank a second time, where they light a fire using flint and steel. The first brigade to get a kettle of water boiling is declared the winner. This was fun to watch. The recording of the Dreamy Wabash that we are going to hear was made by the Peerless Quartet in 1924. On the previous recording, you heard Arthur Collins, who was also in the Peerless Quartet, but had moved on by 1924. This group was around for many years and developed a unique style. So, if you enjoy barbershop quartet singing, you'll enjoy this one. Here is Where the Dreamy Wabash Flows from 1924.
That is where my blue heart goes. Thank I couldn't stay away from the place that I love so. Walk, walk,
No, sir.
walk, walk. In dreams I see that little lake by the fields of golden grace, where every evening Mother Nature croons her tune. The cricket,
And
the cricket,
and the moon.
I miss the plows,
And
cows,
the
chickens and the new moon. Hey, real hay,
Hey,
hey, hey, the open air.
And
There's where I wanna work and play. I'll say, I'm gonna live, love, linger where the world is happy, goodness knows. I'm going back,
back,
where the dreamy Wabash flows, the Wabash flows. Glad to see you say how we are tickled to death to meet you. That's the way they greet you way back home.
Doody-doody-doo.
And you feel that life is real, the beautiful skies above you, and the people love you like their own.
Like their own.
I'm tired of all this making believe, patting the back, shaking the sleeve. They never moment I roam. I miss the clowns,
And the
chickens and the new moon. Hey, walk, walk,
Hey,
walk, walk, the open air.
There's
Where I wanna work and play. Horseshoe,
leapfrog.
hot dog, I'm gonna live.
I'm gonna
Linger where the world is happy, goodness knows. I'm going back,
back.
where the dreamy Wabash flows. Walk.
I wonder, did you pick up on this bit of social commentary about 2/3 through? This makes me think times have not much changed in the last 100 years. Sit back and just let your eyes drink in this image for a moment. Of all the photos I've looked at in the past year, this is my favorite. Thanks to Deb Darga for this one. Blue is obviously a very popular name for a river. Here you have a dozen examples, and I'd bet you can come up with more. The only one on this list I have canoed is the Bluestone in West Virginia. But blue was not so popular on canoes, as only 2% of the canoes leaving the Old Town factory were painted blue. However, if you like blue, this next tune is for you. If you read the playlist for this program and saw Blue River on it, what may have jumped into your mind was an Elvis Presley recording by this title from 1966. You Elvis fans will be disappointed to learn that this next song is not the one recorded by Elvis. Elvis got beat by 40 years. An earlier song titled Blue River was written in 1927 and became quite popular, with recordings made by several vocalists and bands, including Ruth Etting, Sophie Tucker, and Blossom Seeley, to name only a few. The recording we are going to hear is by the Gene Goldkett Orchestra, recorded in New York City on the 15th of September in 1927, and released as Victor 20981. From this photo you can guess that this was a high society band. Hot jazz aficionados in the audience will know the names Bix Beiderbecke and Frankie Trumbauer. In the mid-20s, both of them played in the Goldkett Band, but I cannot tell from this fuzzy photo whether this is Bix on cornet or Frankie on sax, and have not confirmed that either of these musicians were in the recording studio on the day that this recording was cut, but probably. So, here is some hot jazz from the Roaring Twenties, the original Blue River from 1927, as performed by the Gene Goldkett Orchestra.
Tell me why your song is sad, never glad. Blue river, do you hold the memory of a vanished dream? Sing to me of lips I press and caress. Blue river, till a summer hope go drifting down your stream. Can't we both forget that bright summer night in our little canoe, when the blue eyes lost their light as we whispered adieu? When I hear your lonesome song, something's wrong. Blue river, maybe it's because I'm just as blue as you.
Thus far, I have found only 3 songs which mention the canoe builder's name in the lyrics. Perhaps not a surprise is that 2 of those are Old Town, with the third being Haskell. This next song was, to the best of my knowledge, not a big hit. I've not found a recording of it. I have only the sheet music for this one, which is Out in My Old Town Canoe, from a University of Michigan Student Union show in 1916 named Tres Rouge. So, a show written and performed by a bunch of college kid amateurs. This reminds me of the Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland movies, where Mickey says, "Hey gang, let's put on a show." Although we have no vintage recording, Benson Gray found someone to play the piano and sing it. So, for perhaps the first time in 103 years, here is a performance of Out in My Old Town Canoe from 1916.
romantic I have skimmed o'er many seas, 'neath the sky so blue. I've spooned in cozy corners when the lights were low, and always missed my cue. It all seems very pretty, but I surely know there's no love like the love in my canoe. Oh, out in my old town canoe, boys, millions of twinkling stars above. Each little ripple enchants you, whispering a hint of love. No heart can long be unyielding. Sweetly 'twill answer and be true. Float on the shadowy river, out in my old town canoe.
Did you notice that the images were ordered as a countdown in 10-year increments, with an Old Town catalog followed by a picture of a canoe from that era? In the 1930s frame, you saw a photo of a canoe I restored, the one named Tiger Rag. This was the first canoe that I restored. It is a 1939 Old Town. It left the factory painted Princeton orange, which is why I painted it orange. It was shipped to the Washington Tourist Camp, which was a campground located at Haynes Point near the Jefferson Memorial, and started its life in a rental fleet there. This photo shows an orange canoe, not very well, but it has 3 thwarts, so was a 17-footer. The canoe livery was located nearby. Could this be Tiger Rag when it was only 8 or 9 years old? We'll never know. We've come to the final song of this show, Paddlin' Madelin Home. The song was introduced by a very young tenor named Cliff Edwards in 1924 and became quite popular, with many versions being recorded. You see here this second record was released already in 1925. Edwards performed as Ukulele Ike. I suspect few of you know his name, but I'd bet you will recall a memorable performance by him. So, first there will be a short clip of the original Ukulele Ike version from 1924, and pay particular attention to his voice. You might just be able to place where you've heard it before.
I love a girl named Madelin. I know she loves me too. For every night the moon is bright, she rides in my canoe. At midnight on the river, I hear her father call. But she don't care and I don't care if we get back at all, because I'm paddling Madelin home. Say when I'm paddling Madelin home.
And here is a second short clip.
When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you.
I hope this doesn't spoil it for you the next time you sit down with the grandkids to watch Pinocchio. Now you know where Jiminy Cricket's voice came from. Did you notice the difference in sound quality between the acoustic recording from 1924 and the electrical recording from 1940? If you like Cliff Edwards, compilations of his many recordings are available. And if you know who you're looking for, you'll see Cliff playing bit parts in many, many old movies. Next comes the final song of this show, Paddlin' Madelin Home. This is a peppy version recorded by the Waddy Kaufman Orchestra in 1925, which was selected to get your feet tapping and give you all the energy you need to paddle or walk back home. I hope one of these tunes has put an earworm into your head that you'll be humming or whistling for the rest of the week. Here is Paddlin' Madelin Home from 1924.